She outshot a Navy SEAL, 3 rounds, 500 yards, a 2-inch grouping dead center, and the best part, she wasn't military, not even close. Just a 23-year-old nursing student working part-time at a shooting range, trying to pay her dad's $200 medical bill. So how did she go from changing paper targets to training FBI hostage teams 6 months later? This is that story. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching this from? And what's the most unexpected way you've seen someone change their life in just one moment? Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Emma Chen's alarm buzzed at 5:10 a.m., but she was already awake. She'd been staring at the cracked ceiling of her apartment, her thoughts circling the same problem like a dog chasing its tail. The bill from the hospital still sat on her desk, unopened, but burned into her memory, $200 past due. Her father's last MRI hadn't been covered by the VA, and the debt collectors weren't interested in his years of service, just the money. She exhaled, quietly rolled out of bed, and began her morning routine. T-shirt, jeans, hoodie, hair tied back. She moved fast, not because she was in a rush, but because stillness invited doubt, and doubt was a luxury she couldn't afford. By 5:40 a.m., she was pulling into the gravel lot of Riverside Tactical Range, the wind sharp and dry, rolling down from the Rockies like a silent warning. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Emma didn't mind. She liked the quiet before the bullets started flying. The range opened at 7:00. Emma always arrived by 6:00. Today, she needed the extra time, not for targets or brass sweeping, but to settle her nerves. The hospital kept calling. Rent was due in 10 days. And her dad, David Chen, former gunnery sergeant, United States Marine Corps, had just started coughing again. She flipped on the range lights and walked the firing line, inspecting each bay. The long-range section had been reserved for a full-day military training block. Special operations, her supervisor had said. That usually meant SEALs or Green Berets. She'd seen them before: quiet, efficient, and intense. They preferred range staff to be invisible. Emma was fine with that. She'd been invisible most of her life. At 6:52 a.m., 2 matte black SUVs pulled into the lot, dust trailing behind them. The first door opened. The boots that hit the ground were polished but scuffed, broken in, like the men who wore them. Emma stood behind the supply shed, partially obscured, clipboard in hand. She didn't need to get close to recognize the rhythm. 8 men total. No laughter. Minimal words. Each one moved like his body knew what to do before his brain caught up. And then there was him, younger than the rest, probably 26, tight jaw, eyes scanning too quickly. He adjusted his rifle bag twice before even reaching the benches. His name would be Jackson, she learned later, and everything about him screamed one-word: pressure. The team leader, a square-shouldered man with salt and pepper stubble and a calm presence, gave instructions. He carried himself like authority didn't need to be spoken. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Kane. If Emma remembered her insignias correctly, she'd seen his type before. Calculated, precise, and hard to impress. But it was Jackson who caught her attention. Not because of confidence, but because of its absence. He pulled out a Barrett M24 military-spec bolt-action sniper rifle, suppressed, with a heavy fluted barrel and high magnification scope. A beautiful machine, but dangerous in the wrong hands. And Jackson's hands were too tight. Emma stayed 50 meters back near the maintenance station, pretending to organize fresh targets, but her eyes never left the shooting lane. Jackson took the prone position, bipod deployed, stock tucked into shoulder. He inhaled deeply and held it far too long. Then came the shot. Miss. He adjusted slightly. Shot again. Miss. High left. Another shot. Another miss. Then another. And another. 15 shots in total, all wide. 2 barely grazed the outermost rings. 1 struck the wooden frame of a neighboring lane, startling the shooter 2 bays over. "Watch your goddamn fire," someone snapped. Jackson sat up, face flushed, jaw locked. He looked back at Kane, who watched him like a chess master reading a losing board. The other SEALs murmured behind him. One raised an eyebrow. Another leaned back with folded arms. Unimpressed, a third made a sarcastic comment Emma couldn't quite hear, but Jackson did. He stood up and ripped off his ear pro, breathing hard. "There's something wrong with this rifle," he barked, voice sharp and defensive. "It's pulling left every damn shot. The scope's probably off." Kane didn't say a word, just kept watching. Jackson turned back to the bench and slapped the side of the rifle. "Seriously, who set this thing up? The zero is trash. The recoil feels weird." Emma winced. Even from 50 meters, she could see it wasn't the rifle. It was him. His elbow had been too far under the body, compromising stability. His grip, white-knuckled and tense, transmitted every twitch straight into the stock. His breathing erratic, holding too long, then firing during a spike in heart rate. And the trigger pull, he slapped it like ringing a doorbell. Her father had a word for it: violence of motion, a precision shooter's worst enemy. Emma wanted to look away, to focus on the target markers in her hand, but her eyes stayed glued to the scene. It was like watching someone saw through sheet metal with a scalpel. Jackson took a final step back, face red, mouth tight. Then he hurled the rifle onto the shooting mat. "You know what? Screw this," he shouted. "I'm not wasting ammo on a broken setup." The sound cracked across the range like a whip. Everything went still. One of the SEALs muttered something under his breath. Another chuckled, but Kane still didn't move. Just looked at Jackson, quietly. Emma's hand trembled slightly around the clipboard. She wasn't supposed to get involved, wasn't supposed to say anything, but the words were already forming. And somewhere deep in her gut, she knew she wasn't watching a bad shooter. She was watching a crisis unfold, and something in her couldn't stay silent anymore. Emma's fingers clenched tighter around the clipboard, her knuckles white. She told herself to walk away, turn around, stay quiet. But something in her, maybe the same stubbornness that made her father endure 2 tours in Fallujah with a fractured knee, wouldn't let it go. 30 seconds. That's how long the silence hung. Thick and heavy. 30 seconds of her heart pounding against her ribs. 30 seconds of telling herself, "Don't say it. Don't you dare say it." And then, before her brain could stop her mouth, "The rifle's not the problem," she said. It wasn't loud, but in the stillness, it cut like a shot. Every head turned. 8 men, elite operators, swiveling toward the sound of a young woman's voice from the edge of the field. Jackson froze mid-sentence. Marcus Kane's brow lifted, only slightly. Emma felt her face flush. Her body screamed retreat, but her feet stayed planted. She stepped forward, slowly, leaving the shade of the maintenance shack. "You're pulling your shots left. You're anticipating the recoil, and you're holding your breath too long." Silence. Jackson's eyes widened, first in disbelief, then in offense. "Excuse me," Emma swallowed hard. "You're slapping the trigger instead of pressing it. Your left elbow's too far under your center mass, and your cheek weld is inconsistent." One of the older SEALs, tall, lean, gray at the temples, let out a low whistle. Chief Petty Officer Thomas Reed, his name tag read. "Who the hell are you?" Jackson snapped, stepping toward her. Emma didn't flinch. "Just someone who watches shooters for a living." That lit the fuse. "Kobe," Jackson growled, sarcasm heavy. "If you think you can do better than a Navy SEAL," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The challenge hung in the air like storm clouds. Marcus Kane, standing just off to the side, raised a hand not to stop Jackson, but to quiet him. His eyes were fixed on Emma now. He looked her over not in a dismissive way, but measured, calculating. He watched how she held her clipboard, how her breathing shifted, how she didn't break eye contact. "Name?" he asked. "Emma Chen." "You military?" "No." "Sir." "Nursing student." "Part-time range assistant." Thomas Reed tilted his head. "Chen, as in David Chen." Emma nodded. My father. Thomas let out a quiet breath. I'll be damned. Gunnery Sergeant Chen. Scout Sniper School. That man taught half the Corps how to shoot straight. Jackson blinked, suddenly less sure of himself. Emma glanced at him. He also taught me how to watch people shoot, and when they're making avoidable mistakes. Kane crossed his arms. You just listed 5 errors. Yes, sir. Say them again. For the record. Emma nodded, steadying her voice. 1 overtension in the support arm, pulling the rifle off target. 2 breath-holding causes muscle tremors. 3 improper cheek well leads to parallax errors. 4 death grip on the rifle affects natural point of aim. And 5 slapping the trigger introduces lateral torque. Reed raised both eyebrows this time. Kane said nothing, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Emma took a breath, feeling the heat of their attention. Also, the scope looks 2 MOA off to the left. I saw you compensate on your 3rd shot, and that's when you hit wood. Jackson scoffed. Oh, come on, she's not wrong, Reed muttered, glancing at the spotting scope. That 3rd shot was way off pattern. Kane turned to Jackson. Scope been re-zeroed since deployment. Jackson shifted. I assumed it was factory set. Marcus didn't say anything, just looked back at Emma. Tell you what, he said. You think you've got it figured out? Then prove it. Emma's breath caught. You get 3 shots, Kane continued. Same rifle, same distance, 500 yards, winds running 8 to 12 miles per hour from the southwest. If you hit center mass, you buy credibility. If not, he let the silence finish the thought. Emma nodded once, slow and sure. I need to inspect the rifle. Kane handed it over without hesitation. The Barrett M24 was heavier than her father's Remington 700. Same basic platform, but everything about this one felt more intense, more alive. The scope was warm from Jackson's hands. She noted the misalignment immediately. The 0 was 2 MOA left, just as she thought. Emma adjusted it carefully, confirming her estimate. Then she checked the action, ejection, bolt alignment. Everything else was clean. Behind her, the SEALs watched in silence. She handles that thing like she was born with it, Reed murmured. Kane didn't answer. His eyes hadn't left her hands. Jackson folded his arms and looked away, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. Emma stepped to the firing line. Her heart was pounding 120 beats per minute at least. She could hear it in her ears, but her hands, surprisingly, were still. She set the rifle down, dropped into prone, and let her breath settle. The sun had fully risen now. The wind flags downrange fluttered at a diagonal. Gusts were inconsistent, more challenging than earlier. She'd have to compensate. She adjusted the elevation dial, set her wind hold, checked the rear bag, made micro adjustments to the bipod legs. Her breathing slowed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Find the rhythm. She glanced back. 8 men watching, each expression different. Curiosity, skepticism, a few with growing respect. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Emma turned back to the scope. She lined up the crosshairs, let her muscles go slack, felt the rifle sink into her shoulder like an extension of her body. And then nothing. Not yet. She waited for the natural respiratory pause. Mid-exhale, stillness, finger to the trigger, gentle pressure. Click. Safety was still on. She smiled to herself. Focus. Emma flicked it off, reacquired the target. This time, everything aligned. No thoughts, no fear, just her, the wind, and the steel plate half a kilometer away. Emma pressed her cheek to the stock, blocking out the rest of the world. No sound, no audience, just the rifle, the wind, and the steel silhouette 5 football fields away. She took another breath. Shallow, controlled. Her body relaxed into the prone position, elbows locked into the mat, shoulder firm against the recoil pad. Her right hand found the pistol grip with a grip neither tight nor loose, just stable. The trigger rested lightly beneath her finger. Waiting. Wind flags rippled at inconsistent intervals. 8 to 12 miles from the southwest, just like Marcus said, but now it was leaning closer to 12. She adjusted her wind hold half a mil to the right. She blinked once, then settled. To her left, the SEALs had stopped moving. No more murmurs, no more scoffing. They stood behind the line in a loose semicircle, arms crossed, eyes locked forward. Marcus Kane didn't speak. He didn't need to. Thomas Reed leaned slightly forward, curiosity growing, and Jackson. His jaw was clenched, but his eyes were wide, watching, calculating, bracing for the worst. Emma began her trigger press, smooth, deliberate. Straight back. Don't anticipate. Let it surprise you. The rifle cracked. Dust kicked near the base of the target. Not centered, but not a miss. Reed raised his spotting scope. 8 ring, right edge, 2 inches outside center. Emma exhaled. That was close. Too close. Her pulse spiked. She felt heat flood her face. You're nervous, she told herself. You rushed the trigger. Should have waited half a second. She rolled her shoulders slightly, resetting her posture. Then she heard her father's voice in her mind. Clear as day, pressure makes diamonds. Kiddo, but only if you keep your form. Emma let the air escape from her lungs. Her fingers stopped trembling. The rifle settled once more into her body. She cycled the bolt smooth. Precise chambering, round 2. Reacquired the target. Slower this time. Not lazy, just exact. Breath in. Out. Hold. Trigger press. The crack echoed sharper this time. Reed straightened. Bullseye. Dead center. Nobody moved. The air seemed to thicken. Jackson's mouth twitched, caught between disbelief and something else, something that looked like fear. Marcus Kane didn't speak, but his hand moved to his belt, slowly resting on his hip like he was grounding himself. Emma didn't smile, didn't even react. She worked the bolt again. 3rd round ready. This one felt different, familiar. Her breathing had slowed, muscles loose but locked. Her focus narrowed so tight it might as well have been a tunnel. The crosshairs hovered for just a beat, not searching, just waiting. She fired. Reed didn't even need the scope this time. The ping-off steel echoed clearly, louder than the report of the shot itself. He checked anyway, then looked up at Marcus. 1-inch group, triangular formation, all 3 in a kill zone the size of a quarter. Kane exhaled the kind of breath people let out when they've been holding it without realizing. One of the younger SEALs muttered, "Holy hell." Another elbowed Jackson, who said nothing. Emma lifted her head from the scope. Her hands were steady. The adrenaline was still there, humming beneath her skin, but controlled now, not racing. She safed the rifle, set it down, and sat back on her knees. Silence stretched. Then Kane stepped forward. He crouched beside the rifle, checked the chamber himself, then looked at her. "You've done that before," he said. Emma nodded, calm. "Every weekend for the past 11 years. Reed chuckled softly. "Gunny Chen didn't waste a minute of your childhood, did he?" Emma stood up slowly, brushing dust from her jeans. "He taught me patience before he ever let me touch a trigger." Jackson was still frozen in place. Reed finally broke the silence. "Okay, so can someone explain how our boy over there missed 15 shots with this same rifle?" Emma looked at Kane for permission. He gave a short nod. She stepped forward, facing the group now. Scope was off by 2 MOA. That accounts for most of the lateral error, but the rest was technique. She looked at Jackson, not unkindly, just straight. "Your elbow placement pulled the rifle inward with each shot. Your breath control was inconsistent. I counted 6 seconds of hold on 1, which spiked your heart rate. Your grip was too tight, and your cheek weld moved each time you adjusted after a miss. And your trigger press was more of a slap than a squeeze. No judgment, just facts. Jackson opened his mouth, then shut it. One of the SEALs behind him, a stockier guy with a Michigan patch on his sleeve, pulled out his phone. Emma caught the red rec dot in the corner of the screen. He'd recorded it. All of it. Kane noticed too. He didn't say a word. Then headlights. A black sedan pulled up beside the range tower. Out stepped a man in crisp navy dress blues, silver rank tabs gleaming in the sun. Commander Brooks. Emma felt her chest tighten. Kane turned to greet him. Sir? Brooks surveyed the scene. His gaze swept from the team to the rifle to the steel target 500 yards out. Interesting timing, he said. Not exactly, Kane replied. We had a situation. Miss Chen offered a solution. Brooks turned toward her. Miss Chen, Emma stood straighter. Yes, sir. Brooks walked toward her, slow and deliberate. I've heard your name. Word spreads quickly through these channels. Emma's eyes flicked toward Jackson, then back. I was told someone here put 3 consecutive shots in the center ring with a misaligned scope. Yep, sir, Kane confirmed. Brooks looked at the rifle, then the target again. And this someone is a civilian. Yep, sir, Emma said. I work here part-time. I'm also in nursing school, Reed chimed in. She's also David Chen's daughter. Sir? Brooks blinked. As in Gunnery Sergeant David Chen, Scout Sniper School. Yes, sir. The commander's tone shifted, not warmer, but sharper. Well, that explains the form. He turned to Jackson. You fired 15 rounds, correct? Jackson stiffened. Yes, sir. And blamed the weapon. I thought the scope was off. It was, but you didn't check. She did. Jackson had no reply. Brooks faced Emma again. Miss Chen, would you care to give us a breakdown of your assessment? Emma repeated her earlier analysis, this time more concisely. Technical, clinical. Brooks listened without interruption. When she finished, he nodded once. Very well, Chief Kane. I'd like you to document her performance and submit it to my office by end of day. Yes, sir. Brooks turned back to Emma. I imagine this isn't where you saw your morning heading. No, sir, Emma admitted. Neither did I, he said, and almost smiled. Then he turned and walked back to his car. The door shut, and the sedan drove off in silence. The moment lingered. Emma looked around at the men. Their faces no longer skeptical. Now, something else. Respect, curiosity, and a little bit of awe. Marcus Kane stepped closer. Emma, he said quietly, I don't know what your plan is after nursing school, but something tells me it doesn't have to involve hospitals. She smiled for the first time that day. I think I'm starting to realize that. The conversation with Commander Brooks came later that afternoon. He waited until the range was clear. The SEALs had packed up. Jackson, quiet and pale, left without a word. Marcus Kane had given Emma a respectful nod, but said little more. Brooks found her by the side of the office, coiling target cables. His dress blues looked out of place against the gravel lot and spent brass, but his posture made it all feel normal, like he belonged everywhere at once. Miss Chen, he said, hands behind his back. Emma stood straight, heart already racing. I wanted to speak privately. He continued, about what I saw today and what I heard before I arrived. She waited. I've served 32 years, Brooks said. I've seen thousands of shooters, dozens of instructors, but today I saw something rare. Emma tried to deflect. I just got lucky with 3 rounds. No, Brooks said. That wasn't luck. That was fundamentals under pressure. That was analysis under stress. And that was leadership without rank. Emma said nothing. Brooks took a breath. We're beginning a new pilot program in coordination with Fort Carson, advanced marksmanship, mixed units, Marines, Rangers, law enforcement snipers. We need fresh perspectives. Would you consider observing the first few sessions? Emma blinked. You want me to observe as in? Attend unofficially. You wouldn't be giving orders. But I want you there, watching, listening, offering input when appropriate. She hesitated. I'm a nursing student, sir. I work 2 jobs to keep that going. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm offering you an opportunity most civilians will never see. She looked away, unsure. Brooks softened. You don't have to say yes today. Just don't say no without thinking. That night, Emma sat on the floor of her apartment with a cold cup of ramen and her father's hospital bills spread across the coffee table. The number hadn't changed, with $200 outstanding, and another 1 hours at $800 due next month. She stared at her textbook for anatomy class. The words swam. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus Kane. Fort Carson training begins Monday, 600 if you're coming. Pack warm. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she replied, see you there. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a dream. Emma rode in silence to Fort Carson Advanced Training Center, her ID badge temporary and unscanned. She signed NDAs, got a plain visitor lanyard, no rank, no clearance. But her presence was respected barely. She kept to the sidelines, a shadow in the back of the classroom, an extra set of eyes during live fire drills. Her notepad filled quickly. Observations, wind calculations, shooter behavior, minor inconsistencies in rifle recoil, breathing patterns, missed details that instructors often brushed past. The first 2 weeks, no one asked her anything. The 3rd week changed that. The session involved a group of Marine Scout snipers practicing long-distance shots across variable terrain. Targets had been set at 800, 950, and 100 meters. The shooters kept missing high at the 950. Instructors chalked it up to elevation fatigue. Emma stood at the far end of the firing line, eyes narrowed toward the terrain. Something didn't add up. She stepped closer to Kane. Sir, she said quietly, can I say something? He looked at her, then nodded. She pointed toward a shallow dip in the terrain between firing point and target. There's a topographical shift at about 700 meters, a pocket where the wind curves in off the slope. It's not visible from here, but I've been watching the mirage. Kane raised his scope, checked, frowned. He called for a pause, repositioned the spotters. Within 10 minutes, the issue was confirmed. Shots adjusted, hits followed. One of the instructors, a Marine captain with 15 years experience, walked past her, paused and muttered, good eye. Chen. She didn't smile, just nodded. But inside, something clicked. That evening, Kane handed her a business card. Victoria Hayes, Director, Precision Training Solutions. She's former Army. Kane said, runs one of the top marksmanship contractor firms in the country. She's been watching your notes. Wants to meet? Emma took the card, unsure. She's not military anymore, Kane added. She understands people who walk a different path. The meeting happened 2 days later, over coffee at a quiet cafe near the base. Victoria Hayes had the calm, controlled energy of someone who used to command and still could. Sharp eyes, measured words. I read the report from Commander Brooks, she said. I've also spoken with Reed and Kane. They're not easy to impress. Emma shifted in her seat. I'm not an instructor. I don't have credentials. Hayes raised an eyebrow. You have something more important: pattern recognition, intuitive analysis, and the ability to explain what you see. She slid a document across the table. Contract civilian marksmanship consultant, part-time, $85,000, year flexible schedule, travel optional. Education supported. Emma stared at it. Hayes smiled. You're not being hired because you're a prodigy. You're being hired because you pay attention and because you help others improve. That's rarer than talent, Emma told her father that night. They sat on the back steps of the duplex, the old wind chimes rattling in the breeze. David Chen didn't say anything at first. Then he took a long sip from his tea. You always had the eyes for it, he finally said. But I thought you wanted me to finish nursing. I do, he said, but you were never just a helper. You were always a teacher. He looked over at her. If this is the door that opens, don't wait for permission. Walk through it. Emma's first official assignment came 4 weeks later. A mixed group of military and law enforcement snipers gathered at Fort Carson, assigned to a week-long advanced techniques course. Emma arrived early, wore neutral colors, carried a notepad, not a sidearm. The instructors introduced her as a civilian advisor. The murmurs started almost immediately. She's, what, 24? She's never deployed. Who is this civilian? Emma said nothing. She'd heard worse. She let the resistance roll off like water. The first 2 days were rocky. One Marine sergeant openly ignored her input during diagnostics. Another shook his head when she corrected his elbow placement, but she stayed patient, watched, took notes. By day 3, the breakthrough came. One of the veteran Marine snipers 12 years in, multiple deployments couldn't hit a moving target on a crosswind. His frustration grew with each attempt. Emma asked for 5 minutes. She adjusted his body angle. Not the way he'd been trained, but in a way that suited his longer arms and stiffer hips. She explained how the adjustment would reduce tension and improve rotation. He hit the target on the first try, then again, and again. That night, he approached her. I thought you were just some civilian with a lucky shot, he admitted. But you read me better than my last 2 instructors. Emma smiled gently. Everyone's built different. That means they shoot different. It's just physics and a little psychology. He laughed. You're good at both. By the end of the week, Emma had earned more than their respect. She'd earned their questions, their trust. One officer asked if she could consult on redesigning their qual course. Another asked if she could mentor a younger instructor struggling to teach fundamentals. And on Friday, Marcus Kane handed her a sealed envelope. Inside her own contractor clearance badge, no longer temporary. Below it, a handwritten note from Commander Brooks. Observation complete. Recommendation approved. Welcome to the mission. Emma stared at the card for a long moment, then slipped it into her pocket, already thinking about her next student. 6 months later, Emma Chen stood beneath fluorescent lights in a concrete training complex, coaching the FBI's elite hostage rescue team on precision shooting in confined spaces. The scenario was brutal. 3 hostiles, 1 narrow hallway, 2 potential civilian targets, partially obscured, 1 misfire, and the simulation would mark it as collateral. Emma watched from behind the plexiglass observation wall, headset on, tablet in hand. Your stance is too wide, she said calmly into the mic. Shift weight forward, left elbow tighter. Control your recoil. The agent inside adjusted. Target down, civilian untouched. Better, Emma said, but you can shave half a second off your acquisition if you index from a higher ready. The operator nodded through the earpiece. No ego, no argument, just respect. Back home, things had changed too. The $40,000 in student loans that once loomed over Emma like a storm cloud paid off. So were the medical bills for her father's back surgeries. She'd walked into the hospital last month and written a check at the counter. The look on the clerk's face had been worth every penny. Her father didn't say much, but when he opened the fridge later that week and found it fully stocked steak, ginger tea, his favorite dumplings, he gave her a nod that said everything. The recognition had followed quickly. After Fort Carson, she'd been invited to consult with a U.S. Olympic shooting coach, offering insights on mental control under pressure and individualized stance correction. What began as a quiet 2-day observation turned into a 5-week side contract. Her mind sees patterns most instructors miss, the coach wrote in his report. She trains the eyes before she trains the trigger. Despite the whirlwind, Emma didn't give up on her nursing degree. She completed it in May, top of her class, walking the stage in quiet pride. But something had shifted. The hospital didn't call to her the way the firing line did. When an offer came from a joint international task force, requesting a custom training package for counter-sniper operations in volatile regions. Emma didn't hesitate. Her job now wasn't just about accuracy, it was about survival, teaching people to protect others and themselves with the margin for error reduced to zero. One evening, while preparing a brief for that assignment, Emma received a message from a familiar number. Jackson. It had been months since she'd seen him. The message was short. Hey, just wanted you to know, I hit the 1,000-yard triple today. Consistent 2-inch grouping. Your notes helped. Thanks. She smiled at the screen, not because of the distance, but because of the humility in the words. Later that week, she got a call from Marcus Kane. Thought you should hear this from me. He said, Jackson's leading his team now. Became our most consistent long-range asset. Emma leaned back in her chair, listening. He tells new guys about the time he got corrected by a civilian target girl, Marcus added, chuckling. Emma laughed. Guess I was memorable. Oh, you were more than that, Marcus replied. And speaking of, he cleared his throat. I've submitted a letter, recommendation, for level 3 security clearance. Should give you access to higher tier contracts, especially with allied agencies. Emma paused. That's a big step. You're ready, he said. Whether you believe it or not, that belief took time, but eventually. Emma stopped flinching when someone called her Instructor Chen, stopped hesitating when walking into briefing rooms filled with decorated veterans. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She was there to help them improve, and that gave her purpose. Her new office wasn't much, just a converted hangar bay at a specialized tactical training facility outside San Diego. But she'd lined the wall with photos, not of herself, of students, the Marine sniper who hit a moving target for the first time, the Ranger who shaved 4 seconds off his transition drills, the police officer who overcame her fear of indoor engagements. One empty frame remained. She'd save that one for the future. On her final day of the quarter, Emma stood beside a nervous young trainee just 18, hands shaking around the unfamiliar rifle. Emma adjusted his stance, lowered his shoulders, brought his cheek to the stock. Better, she said gently. He glanced up. What if I miss? Emma smiled. Then we figure out why, and we fix it. She stepped back, handed him the rifle, and let him take the shot. It wasn't perfect, but it was the beginning. That night, Emma returned home to find her father already outside, sitting on the porch with his old Marine Corps blanket and a cup of hot tea. She sat beside him. They didn't speak for a long time. Then, without looking at her, he said, You found your way. Emma nodded. It just wasn't the way I expected. That's how the best ones happen, David Chen murmured. You don't chase them. You earn them by being ready when the moment comes. He looked over. I was worried, at first, that maybe you were getting pulled into something too far from who you were. Emma chuckled softly. You mean back when I was a shy range girl who didn't talk to anyone? David smiled. You weren't shy. You were focused. He sipped his tea. But I'll admit I didn't see this coming. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. I didn't either. Weeks later, Emma stood in a boardroom, presenting a proposal for her own training division, a hybrid civilian-military education program designed for high-stress environments, emergency services, tactical response, and advanced threat identification. The board listened. They approved. Just like that, Emma Chen went from contract consultant to program founder. But even then, she still returned to the range, still walked the firing lines, still coached the newest shooters. Not because she had to, but because that was where it all began. And one afternoon, under a warm California sky, a young woman, timid, uncertain, held a rifle for the first time. Emma stepped in beside her, adjusted her stance, calmed her nerves, explained how her heartbeat affected her aim. Then, as the students settled in, Emma placed a hand gently on her shoulder and smiled. Take your time. The wind will always be there. Just breathe, and when you're ready, let it go. She stepped aside, letting the girl take the shot. In that quiet moment, Emma realized something. This wasn't about rifles or tactics or competition. It was about passing forward what someone once passed to her, a voice in the silence, a truth spoken when it mattered most. And all of it, every door that had opened, every life she'd touched had begun with one small choice. One moment when she didn't stay quiet,